Oh, whoa. This is a pretty scary place. Yikes! Okay, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're talking Star Frontiers, and I'm finishing off the trilogy of whatever ended up happening to Bubba the Dralasite in his adventures. When we last left off, he was tired of life on Turlodrome. He had decided, this is a bit dull. And he and his buddy Balgroob decided, let's hop aboard a Ysarian spaceship, because they said, hey, if you want some adventure, we're heading to the planet Outer Reach. Come on board. So they did. And that's where we are. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is the molten landscape, hellscape of Outer Reach. Now, people who know Star Frontiers, they know all about Outer Reach, but I'm going to tell this story from Bubba's perspective, and for anybody who doesn't know this stuff, they might enjoy that point of view. So, yes, a lot of the Star Frontiers fans are going to be sitting here going, I know this, I know that, but let's tell the tale from Bubba's point of view, shall we? So they enter the Dramune star system, and the Ysarians to spend a couple of days slowing down their freighter, headed toward Outer Reach. And of course, this may not be obvious to Bubba or anybody who doesn't know Star Frontiers, but for those who do know it, of course the freighter got attacked by pirates. Duh, we knew that was going to happen in the last time I talked about Star Frontiers. But anyway, so, long story short, Bubba and Balgroob are like, oh, we're being attacked, parts of the ship are getting blown off, let's get our butts into an escape pod and get to the planet. Okay, it'll be safer there. Until they emerged in this molten lava awful place. It's like, okay, what the heck is going on? Well, luckily, the emergency beacon is going to go, and it's going to, someone will come and rescue us, of course. But the time went by, and they were kind of like, nobody's coming, and it's very unpleasant around here. Plus, there's only so many supplies in the escape pod, and water's going to be a factor real quick. There's no water on this world. Maybe that means there's no life. Maybe we're safe. At least we can breathe the air. So they decided, okay, let's head across this and see if we can find our way to civilization. Because, hey, it's a well-known planet. It's part of the council. It's something the Ysarians were thinking, oh, no big deal. We're going to sell off some stuff. And apparently there are rumors that Outer Reach is a great source of minerals, so which I guess makes sense. If you've got a lava-like environment, it's spewing forth gems and gold all the time. So yeah, this must be, the people who live here must be rich, thought our two Dralasites as they wandered across the landscape. A couple of days go by, and they're like, okay, we're out of water, so they've been using their Vitasalt pills, and their food is not doing great. And they're kind of like, this isn't going well. Where are we? Like, how come this is taking so long to get rescued? How come there's nothing around here? I'm a little bit concerned. Well, that concern got even more increased one night as the sun set. It's, I think it's a 35-hour day on Outer Reach, so long nights and long days, but not crazy, sort of like our days in a way. They set up camp for the night, having wandered across quite a few rocky vistas and avoided as much lava as they possibly could. And they spy, far off in one direction, a light, possibly a fire. Now, that's kind of hard to tell on a planet that's got fire spewing forth everywhere. But this was like an artificial light, like something maybe not from the lava. So they thought, okay, let's go that way because we don't know where the heck we are. Let's go check it out. They approach what they eventually spy as a town. Thank goodness. Civilization. Whew! What a relief. Until they enter that town and they're like, this doesn't look very good. A lot of ruined buildings and smashed windows. There are vehicles, but they've been kind of ruined and decimated. What happened here? Must have been a fight. Must have been a big fight, I guess. But at least now there's a road. There's somewhere we can track and, you know, go forward in our in the next part of our journey. What I thought was kind of funny, before they left, they went inside some of these buildings and they saw what they thought was a grocery store. And it's also worth noting that because Bubba and Balgrub came from Zikit, the Vrusk planet, they speak the Vrusk language. I called it Kayirpuk. And this language, everything that they're seeing, all the wrappers, all the stuff that's on the walls, etc., it's not in a language that they speak. Turns out it's in Pangalactic, because the people of Outer Reach speak Pangalactic, for reasons we'll get to. But Bubba and Balgrub don't speak it or write it, so they're looking at all of these things like, I don't even know what these things say. You can tell a stop sign, kind of, because of the logic that it works on. But I thought, okay, let's go into this grocery store, and because they're getting out of supplies, right? And it's just got a smashed open door. Let's go in. Nothing on the shelves, nothing anywhere, and letters written like in spray paint or something on the wall. And they're like, man, I really wish I knew what that said, because that looks like something really important, but we don't know what it says. Okay, something bad happened in this town. Let's follow the road to the next town. On their way, they had a brief moment of, wait a minute, maybe there is life. Maybe there are animals here, because Bubba at one point is sort of casting his eyes to the sky like, what do we got ourselves into? And he's like, oh, hey, wait a minute. What's that? And he thinks he sees a bird flying across the night sky or the evening sky. It's like, oh, there's a bird. What? Okay, I don't know of any other animals. We've been here several days now. There's nothing crawling on the ground, so I don't know what that bird eats, but you know what? Let's follow it. So going down the road and seeing the direction that bird went into, they are then attacked by crazy bikers, as, you know, like weird looking outfits and crazy sort of gear, and they're yelling things at the Dralasites, and they're like, okay, get out your guns and start shooting, because we don't know what the heck's going on. Luckily, Bubba and Balgrub are not first level characters anymore, so they do manage to defend themselves. However, Balgrub falls. He gets hurt bad. Bubba manages to attack enough of the bikers that they leave, and he's like, oh my god, my friend Balgrub is in real trouble. Now, there was a vehicle that I think they had killed the driver of, and it's got gas, or, you know, we're back into that conversation. There are standard energy units in the power battery, so Bubba, like, takes whatever stuff this crazy-looking punk guy driving the car, throws all that stuff out, takes what supplies he can, puts the very heavily wounded Balgrub into the back of the car, and he starts driving in the direction that that bird went. He approaches another town thinking, okay, now we've got something. At least there'll be some mode of civilization. Oh my god, it's another ruined town. What the heck is going on? And this is looking like intentionally maintained as this ruined town. It's not like a bomb went off and this is just the remains. There are people here, and they appear to want to live this way. Where am I? What is going on with Outer Reach? So they approach the townspeople. They're clearly wounded. The townspeople are all there with their crossbows and weird-looking weapons and yelling this alien language that Bubba and Balgrub do not speak, Pangalactic. But they are allowed in because they're like, hey, we're here. My friend is wounded. He's bleeding out. Please help me. And they're like, well, he does have a car. All right, so they let him in. They take the stuff. They take the car. Sadly, Balgrub passes away from his injuries. That is the end of the line for poor little Balgrub. And that is a very sad moment. But, you know, it's something that I think a lot of DMs need to, like, you need to have a bit of a backbone when a character is going to die. You have to let them die, because that's just part of the routine. If the hit points have drained away, which happened for Balgrub, it's time to say goodbye to that one. And so, Balgrub is dead in the town on the surface of Outer Reach, and Bubba is very despondent. He's like, what nightmare am I living in? My friend is dead. I don't know what these people are saying. It's on this lava hellscape. The people all look crazy. Where am I and what's going on? He does talk to the chief of this town, who brings him in. He's like yelling a bunch of stuff, and Bubba's like, I don't speak your language, I'm sorry. The chief says, luckily, or he doesn't know this. As it turns out, the chief was like, well, I'm going to assign this Pickwick. Now, for those who have been following my videos, I created some of my own aliens for Star Frontiers because I wanted to bump up the alien quadrant a bit. So one of the characters, or one of the races that you could play was a Pickwick, which is this rodent-like race, sort of like, think Secret of Nim, the rats of Nim. Those are sort of my Pickwick characters. Behind the scenes, it was my brother Steve who was playing Balgroob all this time. So when Balgroob died, it's time for Steve to roll up a new character. He rolled up Chivas, the Pickwick warrior of the wasteland, for lack of a better description. The good news is, Chivas speaks Kayerpak. Through a weird trace of events, there was a time that, like, I knew from like a story point of view, I had to make this work. Since Steven's rolling up a new character anyway, why don't I give you the language Kayerpak? And we'll explain it as, like, Chivas was, I don't know, exposed to alien civilizations at some time, and now he can speak this language. So, for the sake of being able to move the story forward, I gave Chivas the ability to speak Kayerpak. Very roughly, very crudely, but at least now Bubba's got somebody who he can talk to. And it is through this interaction that Bubba discovers the most harsh reality of where he is now. Bubba's on Outer Reach! Ah! Yes, this is the post-apocalyptic world of Outer Reach. In my campaign, Outer Reach is not a pleasant place to be. I decided I wanted to make a world that kind of echoed the Mad Max experience, Fallout 3, etc. I wanted a world that had fallen apart. And it just seemed to me it made sense. Why isn't Outer Reach that horrible place? And that's where Bubba has now discovered he is living. He is on the nightmare world that is Outer Reach. 2 men incha, 1 man lives, or whatever. I guess 2 Dralasites enter, and sadly only 1 Dralasite leaves. So, here he is on this, let me set this down so I don't hurt myself. Here he is on this post-apocalyptic nightmare world, Outer Reach. What's he going to do? Well, the chief, who has now at least had Chivas explain, yeah, it's always been like this. We always live like this. It's a terrible world, and they have no idea about other planets. They don't know anything about the rest of the frontier. And Bubba's experience, I mean, yeah, Chivas could speak the other languages, probably from maybe instead of knowing about other alien civilizations, he may have just learned Kayerpak because of people that he knew, other Vrusks that came along. I'm sure other people from the Zikit planet have managed to make their way here, but they didn't really talk about it. Let's gloss over that. As far as your average Joe on the street of Outer Reach, they don't know there's other planets, and Bubba's a bit of a strange enigma. It's like, well, how are you here? What brought you here? And what is this about these other worlds that you're from? So, regardless, the chief is still like, hey, now that at least we can communicate a little bit, why don't I get you guys to go to I know there's down to rocket came from the sky. It's probably got some supplies on it. That's sort of how the people in this post-apocalyptic world live. They're all like, okay, I'm going to continue with making the salvaging whatever I can. And since a rocket fell from the sky, I want you two to go out there and get some items. So they do. And on the way, Bubba is learning all this stuff about, like, Outer Reach, how it has always been this way, how it is this crazy. But he's trying to reason with Chivas. He's like, well, wait a minute. You're part of the United Planetary Federation. How is this planet able to exist in this crazy backwards style and yet also be on the council? It doesn't make any sense. And Chivas is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's move on. And, threatening him with a gun and stuff. So, little adventure past. They have now found some items. They bring them back to the chief. But Chivas is now starting to put 2 and 2 together. He's like, I like the sound of this Dralasite's homeworld, off-world story. I think I'm going to go with him. And having now sort of paid the debt of the medical cover, the medical help that Bubba did receive. I mean, yes, Balgrub passed away, but Bubba needed some help too. You're free to go if you want. And Chivas is like, yeah, I'm going with him. I want to find out about these other worlds. So off they go. I'm just going to take the mask off. A little bit tough to talk. So off they go to find a way off the planet. Bubba's going to leave the world, so Chivas is like, yeah, let's leave the world. I want to see how you're going to do this. They go into another ruined town, but bigger this one. And even Chivas is not familiar with this place. They go through, they're looking around, they're noticing there's like nobody, there's evidence that people have been here relatively recently, but there's no indication about where they are, except for these tracks, all of these sort of leading strings of material that are all going down into the subway. And Bubba's like, oh, well, subways are sometimes used as like a place to seek shelter during combat. Maybe this town, unlike yours, has got the people living in the subway. Let's go down into there. That was a mistake. They're going along through the subway when suddenly they hear what they thought is maybe a train coming. They jump to the side when this foul beast flies right past, a big long centipede giant creature, and they're like, what the heck is that? It turns around and it comes back and it breathes out this gas that causes people to fall unconscious. Chivas is down and Bubba's left himself with like, oh man, it's me and this big worm creature dragon thing down in the subway. Bit of combat. Luckily, he survives to tell the tale, and he revives Chivas, and they're like, okay, that was pretty frightening. Let's move on. I don't like this town. Chivas continues to give Bubba a few lessons on how to speak Pangalactic and be able to read it. Bubba's able to piece together the letters that were on that grocery store wall. He's like, what does this mean if I write it down? What does that say? And Chivas looks at it and he's like, oh, obviously, they were yelling, where is all the food? And that's when, like, Bubba's like, I am in a purgatory. This is awful. They go off, they see a tower off in the distance, and I kind of borrowed a map from another D&D, or it might have been in Gamma World, actually, this one here. Tower on a rocky cliff, the wall, the pathway has been ruined. There's like a lifted up drawbridge. And a good piece of advice I'd give any referee DM, borrow stuff from other campaigns. You know, if you see a really good map that you like the look of, go ahead and use it. It's not a big deal. So they come up to, because their supplies are running low and it's that kind of situation, that's the constant theme of living on Outer Reach. And any post-apocalyptic world, you're running out of supplies all the time. Ammunition, food, fuel. Anyway, so they go up to this thing, and there's this drawbridge lifted up, and on the back it just says, go away. And Bubba's like, well, I'm noticing a recurring theme with the average citizen of Outer Reach. This is a nightmare. I want to leave. So he intends to ASAP. Now, the next town that they go to is Fargo, and I actually totally will admit I stole that from the Gamma World module, Famine in Fargo. But I thought, hey, you know, why not borrow maps? Why not borrow names? And I like the idea that, like, in Outer Reach, they would use very basic language, primitive labels for stuff. Like this town, it's a Fargo. That's why they called it Fargo, that type of thing. This one wasn't quite so hellish. The people were relatively nice, I mean, in Outer Reach terms. But their chief, Orit, said to them, I maybe want you guys to do something for me. As again, this is all part of the barter system. You want to come in, you want to sleep, you want to have a resupply, you got to do something for us. We've recently had a problem. Now, I took a little bit of science with this. On a lava-like planet, they would probably use the heat from all of that lava to power their systems and their cities and stuff. And this particular town of this particular town of Fargo, Orit is the chief. Fargo has this system where the lava flows underneath, and the people are actually fairly comfortable due to that. But a recent spat between Orit, the current chief, and an up-and-coming, very popular guy, Ashingor, led to Ashingor stealing these vent doors that keep the lava flowing through the town. If you put the vent doors down, it'll stop the lava, which will build up heat for a little while, but then it'll eventually stagnate. You know, the stuff down through the paths that are not being used, it'll start to turn into rock. So this was part of the regulation of the town, and also part of the way the original mining worked in the town. The people who are running it don't know any of that stuff. They just know these doors are really necessary to regulate the heat and keep the lava flowing and keep their fairly comfortable lives compared to most places in Outreach going well. So, Orit says to Chivas and Bubba, I want you to go and get me those doors. Okay, we'll do that. And I'm going to make sure you come back with them. I'm going to assign you Salrama, a female Yazarian warrior. This is my friend Daryl. He joined us as well at this point. Now we've got 3 players. He decided, yeah, I want to be a female Yazarian warrior. She will be Salrama, and she will join in. And Orit told her, look, make sure they come back with those doors. They're not going to just wander off. So that was kind of the motivation for his character to now join the group. So Chivas, Salrama, and Bubba head off to find where the doors have been kept. Ashingor is the bad guy here, so we'll track him down. And long story short, they do manage to retrieve the doors. There was a little storyline with Ashingor not actually being responsible, but since we got a lot to talk about in this, I'm just going to move forward. They get the doors, they bring them back. The chief is now happy, and Salrama is now on board with this. Wait a minute, there are other worlds where it's not a living nightmare every single day? I kind of like this. You're taking us off-world, Bubba. So now our 3 companions all head off through the wasteland. They've left the city of Fargo behind them. Eventually, they approach a new town, or larger city, called Horn. Again, I borrowed this from, I think, Gamma World? Can't remember. It was so easy to do. Like, if you've got all of that material, why not use it to your advantage, right? So I took the city of Horn, and as Bubba, Chivas, and Salrama are approaching, they were noticing that, like, as they got toward the town, the big gates and stuff like that, there's a giant combat robot sitting there. And it's like, it wanders through the town, and they were kind of like, is this the next thing we have to destroy? But no, there are people up on the balcony. He's like, what do you want? What are you doing here? Okay, so you've got a big giant robot, and it's not killing us just yet. I guess the robot defends the town? Sure. So in they march. They've got some items they can trade. So it's like, all right, sure. And Bubba asks about this giant robot of theirs. Where'd you get that from? And they're all... So this is a little bit rude here. They don't know what the name of the robot is. They don't know its designation, its model, or anything like that. The townspeople have just all ended up calling him the Heavy Effing Robot. So for short, they called him HFR. And that then got turned into Heifer. So, yeah, they're all about, yeah, Heifer is what defends us. He keeps us safe. So it's not a giant cow. It's a giant robot. Anyway, so these people are, like, not too paranoid and crazy and wild. They're not getting out their pitchforks and, like, attacking people. So Bubba and Chivas and Salrama, they get, like, talking for a little bit. And at one point, Bubba does mention offhand, oh yeah, I saw a bird flying. Where are those from? Because I don't understand how there was a bird. And everybody stopped. Not so much Chivas and Salrama, but all the locals, they were like, whoa, are you talking about the woman? Sure. We don't know what you're talking about. Yes, the legend says if a bird is seen, that means the woman is nearby. Okay, well, I don't know anything about this woman, but we saw a bird, so maybe she was nearby. This is a good sign that the woman might have been near you. You will be safe with her. Okay, cool. Well, we're not. I lost a friend, and I'd kind of like to move. Is there somewhere around here that has a really big city? I know that's probably an alien concept to you, but is there somewhere we can go that I can get to another place, maybe? And they are like, there is Cut Block. That's that direction. It's very far. Cut Block. Okay. Is that a city? Yes, it is very big and there are many people there. Okay. let's set a course. Let's head to Cut Block next, because that's crazy. But then suddenly the town is under attack. Bandits are moving in. Of course, it's out of reach. That's the way they live their lives. Luckily, we have Heifer. He will defend us. But through a weird twist, no, Heifer has now turned on the locals and is destroying people left, right, and center. Long story short, the bandits had actually managed to corrupt his code to their advantage. So now Heifer is attacking the town and bandits are attacking the town. Chivas and Sarama are like, whoa, they get their guns out and they're firing at everything that moves pretty much. Bubba's just like, I gotta get out of this world. This is crazy. But he suddenly realizes, wait a minute, it's a robot and it's under computer control and I'm a technician. I can maybe turn him off. So he runs like crazy up to the control tower and he's finding the computer. He's fired it up and he's like, okay, it's in that Pangalactic language that I'm just not quite learning. But he manages his best, makes a few successful die rolls, manages to get to the controls. And I explained to him, unfortunately, I had to make a roll to see if he could see what the last command was. He failed the roll. And I said to him, okay, basically it says something, and it has a yes or no beside it. What do you do? It's probably, now I was on the path to like get rid of that program, change that program. We want Heifer on our side. So yes, we'll execute that so that the program goes away. Yeah, he shut down Heifer. So at least half of the problem is gone. Heifer is now just an immobilized giant robot, but the bandits are still coming in and attacking. And Bubba's like, now I gotta get out of here. What's going on? He hears all these explosions. Suddenly there's a much more massive set of explosions going on. Something has changed. Something has changed in the tide of battle. And he makes his way down out of the control tower, and there's just this carnage everywhere, but the battle has stopped. And he's looking around, he's going through all the ruins and stuff. There's Chivas, there's Saurama, they're okay. And a lot of the townspeople as well. And there's a big, all of the townspeople are like looking that direction, and Bubba kind of makes his way up. What's going on? Why is it suddenly gone quiet? And I described to them the crowd parts, like something is coming and the crowd is parting. It's like a hole in the center of the crowd and it's coming your way. I was like, uh-oh. And this white ninja person approaches, all wrapped up in bandages. And there's this kind of reverence. And Bubba immediately, well, they can all tell it's a human female. And you can pretty much conclude, this is the woman. This is who they've been talking about, this mystery figure. And she's like looking around, maybe making sure everything's okay. And she catches Bubba. She looks him straight in the eye and she walks up to him. And Bubba's like, oh God, I'm going to die, aren't I? And she actually pulls her ninja mask down. And I used this picture from the Ghost comic book series. And she looks at him for a second. And then she stops and she's like, And she pats him on the head. And all she says is, Burrug. And she turns and she leaves. And the crowd all watches her go. And they're all suddenly looking at Bubba like, what the heck was that all about? He's like, I have no idea. Now, behind the scenes, this is something that nobody would know. The woman was actually one of the NPCs of my original campaign from 10 years before. Long story short, I touched on, when I talked about how the Equalizer was in Gran Quivera in one of my episodes, he was also from that original group. And I showed footage of, there were characters in this episode of the Equalizer from the 80s that reminded me of various characters of my campaign group at the time. One of which, played by Robin Curtis, had like long dark hair, much like this one female character, NPC, who joined the original group. And she was like the badass, like Ellen Ripley, with the gun type. This is her, now on outer reach. She's had it with the world and she's gone into a reclusive lifestyle, but she's still a good person. She still exercises good justice when she can. When she sees Bubba, for a moment, he reminds her, he looks a lot like the Dralasite technician of our original campaign called Burrug. So I just thought it might be a nice little moment. You're flush with like a big celebrity in a fantasy science fiction realm. She sees him and she's reminded of the character that we played back in the 80s. And she just goes up to him and goes, oh, you look like Burrug. That's nice. And she walks away. And that was it. That was the whole exchange. But it really made a lot of difference for the characters. Like, suddenly Chivas and Salram are like, this Bubba guy's important. And all the townspeople are like, the woman knows who you are. They don't understand anything about her, and she's now disappeared. And they're like, please, you'll be the talk of the town. We will celebrate you. We will have a feast. And there is, ironically, seen a little black bird flying throughout the sky, leaving the area. And so, at this point, they're going to cut block. And I'm going to try and make this as fast as possible, because it's been a long video, but it's a big, big end to the trilogy. On their way to cut block, they see a very strange airship, about the size of, like, Jabba's palace sail barge in Return of the Jedi, something that size, flying past. And they're like, what is that? I've never seen that before. But they do notice a little thing fall off the back of it as it heads away. And they like, okay, let's go and check that out. And they retrieve a white helmet. They're like, what is this? Does it work? They try putting it on. It seems to be without power. They're like, okay, I don't know what this is all about, but let's keep it. Keep everything you can on Outer Reach. They get to the city of Cut Block. And on their way, actually, before they get there, they are encountering the highway patrolmen that the government of Cut Block, the people who run Cut Block, they make sure nobody gets in. There are walls surrounding this town and the city, and there are also these cops. And I was kind of going for, very obviously, the Mad Max first film police force. And there's this one guy lying out on top of his car, and the three of them approach, and they're like, hey, we need into Cut Block. Let us in. And he's like, yeah, fuck off. You're not coming in. Nobody gets in. And they're like, but we need to get in there, because they've actually seen lights of spaceships taking off and landing. So they know this is the way out to get out of town. And this guy's like, nah, you're not getting in. Never going to happen. And they're trying to explain their sob story. Look, we have been all over this world, and this guy is very important. The woman knows him. He needs to get into that town. And the cop is just like, yeah, sorry, pal. The heart bleeds. And Salrama had the perfect reply. She's like, oh, does it? She pulled out her gun and she shoots him in the gut. And he dies instantly. Or, I think she had a laser pistol set to very high. Shoots him, kills him on the spot. They're like, great. Now we got the cops after us. What the heck are we going to do? They get toward Cut Block. They ditch the vehicle. And they're trying to figure out a way. Okay, there's these giant walls. The fact that we killed a cop is not going to go down very well. How are we going to get into the city? Out in the outskirts, they do encounter a roving band, and there's this kid who's like, hey, I can get you into Cut Block. No problem. For a price, and there's a little adventure associated with that. He gets them to the walls, but of course it's a double cross. Of course he does. And they're all going through everybody's stuff as they're all tied up. It's like, yeah, we're gonna get you. We're gonna take all your things, etc. But they stop. All of these sort of scavengers, they stop when they see that helmet. They're like, oh, the Malthar. Okay, here, we'll let you in, and we were never here. And all three of our characters are like, okay, what's the Malthar? And again, for anybody who knows Star Frontiers, you know what the Malthar is, and I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't got to that part in your campaign. The Malthar, let's just think of Jabba the Hutt. Okay, we'll just go with that. Jabba the Hutt is the Malthar. And this helmet immediately is recognized by these little scavengers as like, that's to do with the Malthar. Let these guys in. We don't want any problem. Okay, so we're in. Yay! Now, I do have to tell one of my favorite funny stories. They had many adventures getting their way through different districts of Cut Block toward where the spacers are. Apparently, spacers do land here. That's been Bubba's one direction this whole time. I've got to get out. I have to find these spacers, and I have to leave. So, one thing that was really a side story, but it made us all chuckle. It might make you. There's this big to-do about like a whole section of bunch of blocks that are in the town. By the way, it's called Cut Block because lava is actually cutting through. It has redirected and is actually cutting through the city. So around that lava flow, there's actually a way to get hither and yon through different districts. But this area is now cordoned off. There's this big important thing going on. All of these cops are there making sure nobody gets through. And Bubba's like, what the heck's going on with this? This looks important, but I don't understand what it is. And he hears a name that he recognizes. And he's like, I can't remember what it was, but he remembers the name. He's like, that name sounds familiar. That's a rock star. I'll call him Bon Jovi, because I think I did in the video, in the game. So they're like, wait a minute, what's Bon Jovi doing here? And he manages to get up onto a high tower, and he uses like a sniper scope to look. And it's like, yeah, there's this rock star doing a song, and he's got a film crew around him. And Andrew was like, what is going on here? And I was explaining, well, Bon Jovi, or whatever this famous rock star name is, he's filming a music video. And he's doing it on Outer Reach to show how hardcore he is. And yet he is surrounded by a complete army of soldiers and local militia and everybody who's going to make sure nobody touches him. And then he, gets into his limousine and he drives back to the spaceport and he flies away. It's like, huh, real hardcore there, Bon Jovi. Anyway, gonna wrap it up here because we are actually toward the end of the story. There is another double cross that Bubba, Salrama, and Chivas are involved in. And it means they go down into where this bridge is, and there's a guy who's like preparing to blow up the bridge. And they spot somebody with a sniper rifle who looks like they're about to pick him off. They get that guy because I won't get too deep in the weeds of the adventure, but they don't want to hurt this guy. They want to stop the sniper assassin. So they get him, they knock him out, or they kill him or whatever. They take his stuff. They go down and they tell this guy that he was almost going to be attacked by so-and-so, and he clues in. He's like, oh, yeah, that guy was after me. Hey, thanks. I owe you one. And it's worth noting, this is Rel Dakfin, who I talked about in a previous video. He's the captain of the Hungry Polecat. And since these three have come along and have helped him out, and he's got a few spots available on his ship, why don't I take you off Outer Reach in the Hungry Polecat? You can be part of my crew. And thus, Bubba left Outer Reach from all of that nightmare territory, all of that awful, chaotic mess, that wasteland, post-apocalyptic world. He's finally on board the Hungry Polecat, headed off into space, and they actually ended up going to the home planet of the Pickwicks. So I could continue with the adventure, but it's worth noting at this stage in our real lives, real life was taking over. Jobs were coming along and people's responsibilities were extending, and we just weren't able to play as much as we could anymore. We got a few more adventures in with Bubba, but I'm not really going to go into it because this particular episode has been huge, and I think it's a good one to round off on. Also, I do like to wonder, he never did die. Bubba actually continued on with many adventures, and the campaign ended, but the character is still alive. So in my mind, I keep thinking to myself, he's out there. He's actually on a galleon, like a tall ship, pirate style. He's on the home world of the Pickwicks. He's got a crew. He's, manning the steering wheel. And I wonder if sometimes he's still there out there someday. If I was to ever do Star Frontiers again, you could run into Bubba, the pirate captain now. And I'll bet as he sits there on his ship, cruising the high seas, I wonder if sometimes he stops and he thinks, all of this started with me pouring sugar down a gas tank. Alright, I'm going to end it there because this video is really long, but I hope you've enjoyed hearing the trilogy story of Bubba the Dralasite. I will go to doing like normal, non-story related Star Frontiers videos because this one took a lot of research and I had to look through my old notes and stuff, but I will, if people want to hear more adventures, I could certainly tell them. We'll see what happens. For now, though, I'm going to end this one off. So until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.